ambori shalni toko o korosoki, akalasoki aladoro sombariti, shototore me, antorosoki, ankolasoki, akola, enkalasoki, takarasi totu, solombariti.
Welcome to Fortune and Romance with your host, Taylor Fortune, and...
EA Shay. Good, and you?
Today on the episode, we have Naomi Sweet, who is another person on our show that needs no introduction, so I'm just going to pass it right on to herself so she can introduce herself. Naomi Sweet, tell us everything.
Oh, thank you so much, BA and Taylor, for having me on the show. So happy to be here. Yeah, sure. So let's just dive in, I guess. So my name's Naomi Sweet, and I am a visionary, a high priestess healer. I'm an international biodynamic breathwork and trauma release facilitator, and spiritual guide. And really what I do is I help visionaries, light workers, and entrepreneurs, mainly soul-driven entrepreneurs, raise their consciousness and heal their traumas so they can ultimately activate their freedom and make more impact.
I love her.
I can't believe that. BA, I was just thinking about that too. I'm like, let's give her a standing ovation for that.
No, really. If I were wearing pants, I'd stand up.
Yeah. That's a common theme on this show too. No pants. Everybody knows about my short shorts. I get made fun of for it all the time.
I love it. Oh my God. By the way, Naomi, your teeth are amazing. I'm a teeth person. You have beautiful teeth.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. BA, dive in.
No, it's fine. I was just gonna say, when she was speaking, my crown chakra was tingling. So I don't know. She's got some special powers over there.
Yeah, it's the accent, but it's also the voice. There is, I feel trust when I hear you speak. You know what I mean? Like, I feel calm. I know it's the accent partially, but I think it's beyond the accent. There's just this spiritual truth that comes out of you. I saw that on your Instagram. I saw it on your Facebook, and that's when I knew. I'm like, and then I saw you speak the light language, which I'm getting way ahead of myself. But all of these things combined, I'm like, she needs to be on our podcast. Like, people need to hear this voice. They need to see your just aura, your image, and all of that. So, Naomi, I guess you do so many things. Where do you want to start first? Because there are you specialize in about 5+ different things, and I want to really just dive into what is the top thing right now for you.
Or like how maybe she found out that she was different than everyone else. You know what I mean? And then she started her journey.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a journey, and I was honestly feeling into this before I came on, and Spirit just came in and was like, just do your thing, be in the moment. And it's just so important. I feel to often not have a script, so I'm just so off script, just allowing whatever wants to come through. But I really love what you said around the voice, and I feel like that's probably a great place to start. And a bit like you, Taylor, as entrepreneurs we could jump around, but it's going to be a theme and there's going to be threads, but that's probably how I'm going to be, move around a little bit, and then we'll just tie in. So yeah, I mean, for many, many years, I wasn't able to speak, and I still go through the journey of being able to speak that next level truth, and having, some of the stuff come up around, can I say that? And really, it's been a journey of giving myself full permission to just allow whatever wants to come through. And basically, growing up, I wasn't able to fully express myself. I had childhood traumas, and many of us, right? And I just hid a lot and contained a lot inside. And as many of us know, and the ones that don't know, I'm just going to say it, is when we suppress our emotions and we suppress our truth, and often that comes from childhood trauma, not being able to say what we want to say, or feeling like society's conditioned us to just not fully express ourselves for whatever the judgments are maybe put upon us. What it can do is it really does suppress who you are. And then for me, I got to that point where I really did speak about something, and And it was the thing that really freed up my voice. And so then what happened was, I went into, the spiritual journey basically started about 15 years ago. But before that, I was a dancer for 10 years. I was an exotic dancer. I danced from like a very young age. I might even get into trouble if I say young. But anyway, I didn't realize back then that people were paying me lots of money to actually help them heal. And I didn't realize this. And I carried so much shame around it. And I've only just started even telling people about it, to be honest, because I feel like this is what society is really healing. We're really healing this dense energies, which contain the lower frequencies of guilt, shame, pain, you know, all of that. And so it's been a real healing journey to speak the taboo things that, you know, quite honestly, there has been fear around, like, oh, people might not want to work with me if I knew I was a dancer, or, you know, all the things. And in actual fact, it's enabled me to come from a place of like non-judgment. And people are like, well, if she's done that, then I can just like be who I am, because she's not going to judge me because of what she's been through. So I've really like spun it around. And yeah, I mean, the gifts and the skill sets that I learned in that industry for 10 years, I mean, like, you just couldn't teach it. And it got to a point where I was giving this like advice that they were paying me for, because they thought I was there to like dance for them, but in actual fact they were getting counseling sessions. And then, like, I don't know if it was me that just said it to myself one day, or maybe like a customer said it back to me. It was like, wow, you should be charging for that, like, not for dancing, but you should be charging for like the advice that you give. It's really helped me. Anyway, and that just sparked something off. And then I went into a deep dive around 2008 of just, you know, reading all the books, going to all the seminars, trying to really find that thing that was going to free me. I was looking for everything outside of myself. And it was only when I went through the spiritual awakenings and I really started to do the deep trauma work that my consciousness raised up, as a result of releasing a lot of the programs and the conditioning and all the stuff that's like suppresses us in society, that I actually really started to embody like the truth of who I was, and embodying that divine light, which I believe is everybody's purpose, is embodying divine light within us and really activating the heart, so that we can be and have the access code to creator source, God consciousness, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and then just embody that and be that, and then be that divine channel. And it's been a journey, and I don't know if I'm like jumping around. So yeah, ask me whatever you want to ask me.
I just think that's such a cool start to it. I can relate to some of the things that you said. So I as well, I've never danced before, but I did work in that type of environment as a cocktail waitress. And I did it for many years, and it was probably the most money I ever made working. And you know, when I go back to it now, I had the opportunity to this past year to go back waitressing, and it was really tough for me because it is really like a dark type of energy environment when you think about it. So I've come such a long way, and I've stood in my truth and everything. I wouldn't take my past back whatsoever, because it made me who I am today. But I was the same in the sense where I was giving advice to these guys, and they would pay me to just sit with them in the champagne room. I get $700 an hour, and I would literally just help them with their problems. And it was insane. I had regulars. I felt like I was in a session.
I love it. Amazing.
And I had my clothes on. I had like a cute little outfit at work with my little high boots and, you know, my little corset, and I looked all adorable, and I was getting paid to talk to people. There you go.
I love that. Amazing. So many alignments.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so true. A lot of people go into counseling, therapy, spiritual guidance type work from industries that seem lower vibrational, because they find that they have power in their voice, even in an environment that may not be conducive to that. So it kind of is this dark funhouse mirror to you, where, you know, if you're in that kind of environment, yet somehow your spiritual essence, your light, your kind of higher purpose advice is shining through, then you actually see who you really are. And you're like, okay, well, no matter what environment I'm in, I'm kind of this beacon of light, or I'm this, you know, this kind of pillar of truth or whatever. So it's just really interesting. Naomi, tell us more about like the trauma healing. Tell us everything.
Well, I want to start with, I guess the dancing was a big piece, but I mean, ultimately, the journey's really been around self-love and embodying self-love, and it's a journey, and it's really embodying like who we are and what we are, which is love. And yet it's such an abstract thing. It's like, how do you actually love yourself? And I don't really want to make the whole topic about the self-love, but that's really been the journey, because it's like from the traumas and the childhood traumas, it's like I didn't really feel that I was lovable. And so I was, making myself, I mean, I still love to look glamorous now, but I'm doing it for totally different reasons. It's because I connect with like beauty and just art, and it's from a completely different reason. But back then I would, change how I look a lot and just look for a lot of love outside of myself. And that's how I got into that kind of, you can call it sex industry, I guess, but that environment, and really just looking for everything outside of myself to make myself feel whole, because I had this real kind of like empty, like I hadn't found peace. And so I didn't even know I had traumas at the time. It was only when I continued on the journey, and I always kind of went through my life, because I was really sitting with this morning as well, because I thought if I sit with it a few weeks ago, I might forget. So I was doing it fresh today, before the show, and it was really apparent to me that I never really knew how to express myself. Like I would have all these feelings. I'm a Cancer moon, right? So I've got all these emotions and all these feelings, but not knowing my throat chakra was so blocked. And even in relationships, when it got to the piece around showing my vulnerability, I would like put on this like real strong, strong front that, and so I just could never tap into that vulnerability aspect. And so it's really, been a journey of actually healing a lot of these kind of like energies and dare I say entities. And I didn't even realize I had these energies that were quite honestly like sucking my life force, and they'd attached to me from childhood and being in that industry. And they also come up from the shadow, like from our own unconscious. And so that's been a journey in itself. And it was only when I went into, I actually had a dream. So I had a dream, and actually, let me tell you, before I had the dream, ayahuasca kept popping up for me. And I know it's quite a big topic, and I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole with it. But ayahuasca was just around me, and you'll know when her energy is calling you, because you'll just be in these places and spaces, and her name will just keep coming up. So ayahuasca, for those of you that don't know, is a profound psychedelic plant, and it's medicine. It's not drugs, although it can get abused like many things. However, it's you often can come to people that have that like shamanic kind of priestess, or they're attracted to the sacred arts, the sacred healing arts, or they're on that journey of wanting to connect more with Gaia, wanting to connect more to the spirit world, for example. And so she came to me in my dream and started telling me that I was going to go on a vision quest and go to Peru, and I was going to work with shamans. And I then flew out of my body, and I was astral traveling, and I was seeing myself in these healing sanctuaries, but I was also seeing myself like sat with the shamans, like, so working with them and looking around the group. And so after that dream, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to go to Peru. And then the next thing you know, after resisting for so many weeks, saying, oh, I don't need that medicine, I booked my flight, and then I headed over, and I was working on myself, working with the medicine, many ceremonies. And I remember for my third ayahuasca ceremony, I had a Kundalini Awakening. And that was it. My whole life changed after that. And what happened was, pretty much like all my psychic channels opened up. I was seeing, I was hearing, I was telepathically communicating with people. I even remember being in London. This is before I went traveling. I remember being opposite this guy on the underground, and and spirit was coming in saying, okay, so now your channels are open, I'm gonna tell you what he's going to be doing. And ended up like following him when he got off the underground tube. And sure enough, I was getting told where he was going to go, what he was going to buy in the shop. And it was just crazy. And so it was a journey of integrating for a good year of that medicine. And so I basically went through a rebirth of just letting go of my old self, and letting go of a lot of energies that weren't mine, so that I could get more in connection to who I am internally. So it's been a really big journey. And then it's also been a really big journey of like healing myself through so many different modalities before I even got to the place where I was helping others heal. Yeah.
That is so dope. That is so, so cool. I can't even imagine. You should write a book. That would be,
it's in the process. Yeah, there's about 4 books that are in the process. Yeah.
Good for you. I'll buy one for sure.
Add to cart.
Yeah. I have no problem with that as it is right now. I'm like, add to cart.
Yeah, I know.
Bank account is dwindling.
So Naomi, I have a question because I mean, there's so many things to unpack, but entities. Okay, that's an interesting one. I've done a lot of research.
Ask me about that.
Yeah. See, you see where I'm at. I know, like, the provocative things to ask about, and I've done a lot of work on entities. Never healing work, but I've worked with people who do that sort of thing. Can you kind of give us a rundown? Because you said you've dealt with them, you healed them, you've had them. What the hell are entities for our audience, and how does that work? Where does that energy come from?
Wow, it's very complex, but I guess I'll try and break it down in layman's terms. Well, my experience with them is that they have a consciousness. And so, it's not something that they just, well, in my experience, they came up, like one of them attached themselves, which they're basically a consciousness, and one of them attached itself to me. And it's basically an energy, and it's connected to a frequency. So whatever the frequency is that you're feeding. So for example, the lower vibrational entities are often, for example, connected to the energies of fear or lust or insatiableness, which is kind of the same as lust, or anger, all over lower vibrational frequencies. And so, for example, if we're feeding into that lusty energy, then you can pretty much be sure that at some point you may become a vibrational match for that energy, that consciousness. Because there's energies, and then there's like bigger entities. I have friends that are like way more kind of technical with it, and they've really tapped into over say 80 different types of entities. So it's a really big topic. For me, I didn't even know what they were until, quite honestly, went back into, after this ayahuasca experience, I went back in again a year later to do more medicine and to work with a medicine called San Pedro as well, which is more the grandfather medicine, Ayahuasca is the mother. Grandfather is very connected to the heart. And so when I went into that, I was about to go into ceremony, and I had this little puppy come over to me it was just living on the property. And it looked at me and it started growling. And I looked at the shaman, and that's when I knew, because my channels were so open by this point, because I've been integrating for a year, And I looked at him and I went, what's inside of me? I've got something inside of me. Like, animals don't react like that to me unless I've got something inside of me that's not mine. And it was then that I really realized, not on a detailed level, but on a very claircognizance, which means clear knowing level, which is what I have. And he's like, don't worry. It's okay. Be patient. And then I went into ceremony, and this entity was talking through me, and it was scary as fuck, basically. Yeah. And I was just like, at this point, we were deep in the medicine and the ceremony, and then my stomach started to go into a lot of pain. And then before you know it, I was laying down, and they were doing like exorcisms on me. And the screaming and And I'm not trying to scare anybody by saying this, but I feel like it's something that I've been told that I need to speak more about, because there is no right and wrong around it. And, you know, there's a lot of like polarities around the light and the dark, and ultimately it's all love. Like we all have both. The light needs the dark, and the dark needs the light. And ultimately the irony is the dark is desperate to come into the light. It's desperate to have itself be revealed. And so I went through the exorcisms, and then it was a journey of working with the shamans, and everything that I saw in my dream had come true. And I started sitting next to them and tuning into the whole group, because I stayed there. They took care of me, and they were like, we've been shown that you're to stay with us for like a few months here, and we'll train you. And so I was like doing training without even realizing. And so that's kind of where a lot of those energies then got released. And so that's when I went through a massive, like the biggest awakening I've had to date. And that's when I was just, after that, I really got introduced to who I was, because a lot of those energies, I'm going to tie it in with trauma actually, a lot of those energies were so connected to trauma. And here's the thing, when we release a lot of those energies and everything that we're not, so I was carrying a lot of energies that weren't mine. And when we release that and we purify, then we get so into alignment with who we are, and we start making decisions from that very empowered, aligned, like purposeful, divine light place, as opposed to maybe our whole lives we've been operating from those energies have been in the driver's seat, right? So maybe we wanted to do something that was really in our highest and best, but that energy, that lusty energy, for example, was so strong that it was like pulls us over there in a different direction, always trying to take us off track. And so when we get really into the purification, we end up making those decisions not from a trauma response, or not from like an energy that's not ours, that needs to be fed. You know, like for me, it was like I had sex addiction. So it was like that lusty energy was always getting fed.
Yeah.
And Naomi, yeah. Naomi. And about that.
Yeah. What's your sun sign?
I'm on the cusp, but I'm a Virgo with a Leo rising and a Cancer moon.
Okay.
Yeah, I love anyone that's a Leo in the chart. I'm just like.
Yeah, so that I don't even know. We were talking about the entities. Yeah, that was it. So yeah, I mean, I went through all of that, because then when I came out of the jungle, I was getting that, wow, you've done so much work on yourself, continue to do it. And then it got to a point where I went back to London. It was not a frequency match. So many of you listening to this, you might have gone through like a dark night of the soul. And I don't really know why they call it that, because it's more like many dark nights of the soul. Mine was like a dark year.
Mine's been 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Hope we'll get a break at some point.
I mean, it hasn't. The whole entire 3 years has not been one unbroken, horrible dark night. But the, underlying constant has been this dark night of the soul. But it's been a medical experience for me, as well as a divorce and all of that kind of stuff too. So emotional, personal, spiritual. But ultimately, it was all based around a severe medical autoimmune disease issue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I went back to London, like everything was just no longer a frequency match. I really had, and what I mean by that is I went through a massive shedding. It was almost like I was like embodying parts of the snake, with ayahuasca, like shedding the old self. And it was literally
tattooed for that reason.
Letting go. Oh, right. Yeah, letting go of, what's that, BA?
Taylor, show your tattoo.
Yeah, this is my tattoo of the shedding.
Wow. And it's on the left side.
Yeah, the serpent of regeneration is what I call it.
Amazing. I've actually got an earring of the serpent to match your tattoo right now.
Oh, there you go. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, that's the metaphor, though. That's the metaphor. It's because it's very powerful. Serpents, snakes, dragons, that that process of renewal, rebirth, regeneration, that phoenix like ascension, you know, that rise from the ashes. And there has to be that dark night of the soul, the scorched earth process, in order to really rise anew into the new eon, you know, the new era, the new cycle.
Yeah, that's wonderful that you mentioned that, because now I'm hearing to tie in a little bit around what you just said then. So a big part of the healing journey that I've been embodying, and I believe it's one of the biggest journeys that anyone will ever go on, and it's the one from moving from the head to the heart, or you can call it from the masculine into the feminine, and then learning how to balance those energies as the divine union. And so for most of my life, I was very much in my masculine energy, very much like go, 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 not resting, not in my intuition and my divine feminine, like not embodied and in balance. And so what the medicine was showing me, and a lot of the other healing and a lot of the other healing work, was to it was that shift. And that's one of the things that happened when I really completely woke up after having those exorcisms, for example, was suddenly I just had, it was like that, and it had shifted, and I was suddenly awakened in my heart, and it was a massive shift. And then after that, I really started to operate more from the heart space, and then taking more aligned action, so like honoring the feminine first, and then the masculine, the mind, like being in service to the heart, as opposed to always being in the mind all the time and then occasionally being in the heart. So that's actually one of the planetary healings that I work with, and that is restructuring and healing the balance on the planet with the masculine and the feminine. So it was not an accident that I went through that own journey with myself, and it is a massive journey. And I feel like that's what it means right now when we talk about the rise of the divine feminine. It's tying in with what you were saying around the serpent, because when I was actually in the ayahuasca training, I actually had to unlearn a lot of the conditioning from a lot of the shamans, and bless them, they very much helped me. And what I will say is it was a real journey around not giving my power away still, to even, because I had done that because that person helped me so much, right? And so when I work with people, it's really about empowering people so that they don't give their power away to the healer, right? Because we are our own healers. And so there was a lot of patriarchal program that I had to unlearn after my awakening, which was that, you know, the like priestesses are demonic, or, you know, that the serpent energy is demonic. And, you know, there was a lot of that, and it was really tied up in a lot of this patriarchal programming around suppressing the feminine. Yeah. So as the feminine is rising, or the feminine's now risen, it's really more that journey. What it means is that journey of really coming from here and embodying your heart. That's the rise of the feminine. And what's happening on the planet right now is people are really learning to activate this, because you cannot be mind controlled in an awakened heart. You can only get mind controlled from the mind. Yeah, be controlled from the mind. So I feel like people are really learning to, instead of look out here all the time, they're really learning to put it back into the heart and listen to their own divine truth. And that's really what the journey, coming back to the beginning of this conversation around the truth, like that's really been the journey. And I also got activated when I went traveling. I realized I was a grid worker. So after the shedding process, Spirit then came in and said, right, Naomi, you're no longer going to live in London. I was there for 15 years. You're now going to go traveling because you're a grid worker. I didn't even know what a grid worker was. And so I was just listening to Spirit and trusting. And so I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. So I basically packed up all my belongings, sold a lot of stuff, gave a lot of things away. And, you know, I was a real shopping addict. So I had like so many things, so many material things. And so it was a whole healing journey in itself to let go of those attachments, right? So we're talking about entities as attachments, but then we also have material attachments. Like,
I bet BA has a lot of material attachments.
In a bag. Yeah.
Right? I have the same problem. I got to go to the closet today.
Amazing. And it's just, and it's, again, it's that purification. And it's like, it's being able to be so solid in like who you are without all the things. And then you can have the things, of course, but there's a big difference between needing them and being so attached to them and yet just choosing them for, you know, more of a kind of cleaner reason. So that was a process. And then and then I moved to Mexico, which was a couple of years ago, and I started working on sacred sites. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but then it came through because I knew what I was doing with a lot of other things, but the planetary healing work, working on like energetic ley lines and grid systems and vortexes was like, yeah, it was a big thing. And then the more I connected with the land, the more it spoke to me, and the more I then got guidance on where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. And so the trauma work has now been infiltrated into clearing out a lot of the traumas that are held in those energy systems. And ultimately it's to clean them out. Again, healing traumas, raising consciousness. So it works exactly with not just individual people, but the work ripples out into the land. So it's clearing out those traumas to support the ascension process. So that's where the raising consciousness, because that's what ascension is, right? Raising levels of consciousness. So yeah, and that then took me traveling as a world traveler for like the last 2 years. And ultimately I've been looking for land because the vision is to build healing sanctuaries and eco communities. And then, yeah, the journey just continues of traveling. And now I'm in Mexico and I'm really happy here. I'm back in Mexico, back where I started, but in a different location. So yeah, it's been a journey there.
I love Mexico. I got to plan a trip now. I mean, I don't know how long you're going to stay there because you're all over the place, but I mean, I'd love to meet you, honey.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah. I'm in Puerto Vallarta at the moment and soon going to be traveling around Mexico though. Yeah.
So Puerto Vallarta, that's us on the plane.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of my good friends who she lives in Florida, she actually goes to Mexico. I want to say like every 3 months. She's always going there, and she always wants me to go with her, but I'm still waiting for my passport. So for some reason, it must be lost in the mail. I don't know where it is.
Mm-hmm.
But Mexico's beautiful.
You'll be here if you're supposed to, right? And that's the thing. So many light workers now, we're all like very strategically, whether consciously or unconsciously known, with being strategically placed, right? So that we can anchor in our light to really support the ascension process. You know, that's what us starseeds, that's what we're here to do in our own way. We're supporting the ascension process. And, you know, Gaia is going through such a massive planetary shift. She's already ascended, but it's now what we're witnessing is just really that collective consciousness shadow, right? That's quite honestly been suppressed and repressed for so long. And so, you know, what would have to happen in order for us to really go within? I mean, I'm not religious or anything like that, but I'm very much an advocate for prayer. And then before I went through my dark night of the soul, let me tell you, I was on the ground on my knees and I pretty much didn't get up. I was like, something has to shift. I have to get out of this industry. It's like sucking my life force, you know. I knew I had like things sucking my energy, but didn't really know it was entities. And I was praying, and then it was after that I had that dream, and it was like, go to the jungle. So point being why I said that is there would have to be something as massive like what's going on in the planet right now, so that we would get metaphorically pulled to our knees, so that we would go within and really pray. Yeah. And I feel like that's really what's happening. It's like we are all learning how to embody our sovereign divinity, which is that we're sovereign beings. And the truth of who we really are is that we're always free. And that is really my message. Like, my message is that you can always be free. And the irony is because we always are, but we've been brought into a societal program and indoctrinated since birth to trick us into believing that, you know, we're not good enough, that creative source is outside of us. Everything that we need is outside of ourselves. And quite honestly, we've been shown to always give our power away. And so we're now being shown the truth of what's going on in the world, so that we can come within and really start listening to our innate divine light and create a source within our heart and listen to that. And the truth is within. You know, we can all speak truth, and your truth might be different to my truth, and everybody else is listening to this, like your truth might be different to all of our truth here. And ultimately, it's about learning how to trust ourselves. It's about when everybody goes right, you may have to go left, and being okay with that, and just really learning how to love yourself. Like, we've been so shown to, I know, like my whole life, it was like, oh, put other people first. Even in the healing community, it's like, oh, you got to serve others first. It's like, that is a load of bullshit. I'm just going to call that out right now, because if you don't fill yourself up and if you don't put yourself first, you can't be there for those other people. You can't be there for your children. You can't be there for your families. You just cannot show up fully in your divine essence if you are just putting someone or something outside of you as more of a priority. So gosh, I could talk all day long about that.
No, that's true. You have to fill your own cup before you can fill anyone else's. Because then at the end of the day, you know, with all these energy vampires running around, they can deplete you so easily. And then you have nothing left and you're just a walking ghost.
Absolutely. And also as well, I'm just feeling to speak around like boundaries as well. And I feel like the whole world is really learning how to speak up, right? Speak out and up for their boundaries, and learning how to be okay with saying no and yes, and to really know that it's such a divine, sacred act of self-love when we have healthy boundaries. And so many people are really learning how to have that boundary, to really they're remembering actually that nothing or no one outside of them has the right to tell them what they can do to their bodies, put in their bodies, whatever it is. It's like we're really learning how to become well, we're learning how to embody our spiritual maturity and move out of spiritual infancy. And then we're also learning how to really embody our sovereignty, which is, you know, it's our divine birthright. We're sovereign beings, right? We're souls, like we're spirits in like this tiny little body, and many of us have been around for like eons and eons, and so we are absolutely sovereign. But it's just that it's a beautiful journey of remembrance, isn't it? And you know, one of the things I do is like I'm an activator, so I activate anything that isn't free within people, and often that looks like triggering people, and it's not my intention, but what it does is it often gives people, like it does all of us, like even if I get triggered, like we all can get triggered, but it gives us an opportunity to look at that and to go within and to identify that, okay, why am I feeling like this? Why is it triggering me? Like, what is it that's actually coming up to the surface, because it's ready to be healed right now? And so often what's coming up is all the programs and all the, you know, BS belief systems that are outdated, because they've been conjured up in the mind, and quite honestly, they're just not who we are on a soul level. So I want to mention about the activations, because the activations that I embodied, and it was through a journey to Egypt. So I very much resonate with Egyptian timelines, back in the Egyptian priestess timelines, and I've been embodying a lot of those like lifetimes with the skills and the abilities, so that I can do the work I'm here to do in this lifetime. And with the light language, for example, that actually my voice actually got activated fully when I had that massive awakening that I mentioned earlier. But also the next level to that was activating through light language and through toning, through vocal toning, which is an ancient, probably aware of it, but like an ancient like healing modality. Really it helps people to release pain and tension in the body, and induces like calmness and more tranquility.
Can you give us a demonstration of light language? I've heard you speak it before, and it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to, for sure. I will. Okay. I want to tell you where it got activated, because then I feel like I have more power when I do it.
Yeah.
Yes, okay? Let's hear it.
Are you ready? Okay, so I went on a trip, like a real trip, like in the physical, to Egypt.
I get it now. It took me a second.
Yeah. No, it's
try to keep up.
Yeah. And I went to Egypt, and I went with a friend of mine, and she's also an amazing like psychic healer. And so we went into the Great Pyramid, and we climbed up to the top. I don't know if you've ever been into the pyramid in this lifetime, but you literally climb up like that with these little pieces of wood, and you're literally pulling yourself up until you get to the top of the pyramid. And then you walk into the top area where the sarcophagus is. It looks a bit like a tomb, but it's called a sarcophagus, and that's the king's chamber. Now, let me tell you, when we walked in, everybody walked out, and I looked at my friend and I went, oh, we're going to go through an initiation, aren't we? And she was like, yep. Like, she already knew what was going to happen. That's why she joined me on the trip in the first place. So I felt to climb into the sarcophagus, just climb into this tomb. And I lay in the sarcophagus, and bearing in mind, just so you know, there's no windows in the top of the pyramid. It's like pitch black. But when I climbed in there, a massive pillar of light just appeared in the room, and I could see it. Lisa described it more to me because I was actually in a tomb, so I couldn't see it because I didn't get up. She said there was this huge pillar of light. And then what happened was she started toning and speaking light language into the tomb, into the sarcophagus. And then what happened was my body started to shake. And then all these languages started to just pour out of my mouth. And what I found out earlier, because I came out, was like, was I speaking like ancient languages and some strange languages? And there was a guy there with us, and they were like saying, yeah. And what it turns out is there's so many different stargates and portals. And so there's a stargate that's directly connected to Sirius from the sarcophagus. And so what happened was I tuned into it later on, because I wasn't as evolved as I am now. So it happened gradually. I got the understanding that what had happened was it was an activation that within my throat, because a green orb basically came around the sarcophagus, and it dropped into my throat with all these light codes. Okay, which is basically information, light encoded information. And so what I was getting is that what had actually happened was I got the activation, and I got activated into the light languages, which is clearly an ability I've had for many lifetimes. And what was happening was I was calling back more of my soul fragments, soul essence that had been fragmented. And so that whole process was enabling me to call back more of who I was as a soul. So then after that, I started going around a lot of the ancient temples, and I had a guide with me. He was actually Graham Hancock's guide, and I'd found him online, and I was working with him, and I started going around and just translating these hieroglyphics and recording it on my phone. And so now the light language is basically a profound healing modality that is very much in alignment with where we are right now in the planet, meaning there's so many people that are looking to release what isn't free, which is basically the programming that gets held in the cellular membrane in the DNA. And so what the light language does is it basically breaks that. So people that activates the DNA for the ones that are ready, that are listening to it, are usually ready. And then what it does is it activates the person's like divine truth, like their divine, who they are on a soul level. So it supports releasing anything that the person is not, so that they can get into the truth of who they are on a soul level. So it also balances the nervous system. It can really activate the person's own light languages as well. And it's very much a language. It's a galactic language. So it's me channeling my galactic shamanic selves, I call it. So it's me channeling my higher selves from other lifetimes. And it's very much a language of the heart. So the invitation is to feel it, rather than and for the mind to like leave the building, because you're not going to understand it from an intellectual perspective. It's something that's going to be felt. Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready. Yeah. Okay,
let's do it. I can't wait.
Okay, so just inviting you to, and all the listeners, to close down the eyes. And just, if you haven't got headphones, I highly suggest and invite you to put headphones in. And just inviting you to set an intention. Maybe there's something you want to call in or something you want to release. Maybe you want to also become more free. And just allow yourself to receive. Kola salati koro sokro salatoro se takayata ambori shalni toko o koro soki akala sokri aladoro sombariti shototore me antoro soki ankola soki akola enkala soki takara si tutu solombariti hankala soe karaporo salati karasoki karasokoro toro shandaita korakoya taki kaya tokoro toro shalateya ka kira tokoro tokora tia ka tokoko salati ki kura salandaita ka, activating any dormant DNA that is ready to become activated. Ora salati ayako ishiti anki toko ki dalla sora parashando oto eta itoko kiti dalla sui tayindaroto soti amareti oisharandate kaki akora sotora sukiki etikikukeretangiteko kiyeta gares koeratai karasuki sharende itokora mareta itokora shanda hiti kita karasuera tututu sureti. Ankala soro garati ke kaishanda iti ka saliti kaiti kore titira toro sakreta eta kaishi tuturu salati salatu ki jatita kore salati kaishi kiki kore salati koshita tata tutusuki shaitayata akoro so koroto parati shitaka soyatika. Allowing the energy to just seeing that it's still moving through everyone. Just opening up the eyes when you're ready.
Oh, wow. Yeah. VA, we're on planet Earth.
The ground.
I know.
I about that time, like quieting my mind and meditating, Taylor. So that was just, you did something a little different.
I felt it too. That hit me in a couple different places, just like a shock or like some kind of pulsing light wave. Yeah.
What was the beginning when you first started doing that? Where did that come from, that sound?
Oh, the toning. Yeah. So this is like an ancient vocal harmonic technique that the Egyptians and ancients have used this for many, many lifetimes. And there's a lot of people that are very masterful in vocal harmonics and toning, vocal toning. Yeah, it's just something that just started to come through for me. Just like it happened really automatically after that Egypt trip. And it's the same as when I use crystal bowls. It's to do with the sound frequency, and obviously our voices are the most powerful instrument that we own. And so when we tap into that frequency and whatever that note is, that vocal note, it then syncs up as a resonance within whoever's listening. And then it does its thing. And so it gets me into a higher state of consciousness. And then that it shifts a lot of energies that aren't free, that are like icky or feeling a bit off. And it's something I really invite like everybody listening to this to just really play around with that voice. And what helped me get really confident with it as well is recording it from a place of you're not going to share it, it's just for yourself. And so this, I feel, is such a powerful exercise to record yourself and to just listen back, because you start to get even more embodied with your truth, because it's one thing speaking to something or someone and then listening to yourself back. And so, because then you get it like threefold. You speak it, you hear it back, and then you've been sharing it, and then they're getting it. So yeah, it really like deepens the confidence within the throat chakra, and you get multiple blessings when you listen to yourself back, you know?
Oh, that's amazing.
I feel like I'm in a trance right now.
I know, right? Well,
yeah, I'm just like, woo.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like high. I don't even smoke.
So Naomi, unfortunately, we got to wrap it up there for time. But why don't you pitch yourself? Tell us where we can find you, how to book you. Just tell us everything. Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want to pitch.
Yeah, sure. So it's Naomi Sweet, and then _ for Instagram, Naomi Sweet again for on Facebook. In the process of rebuilding personal brand, but that's really where you can find me. Also LinkedIn, Naomi Sweet. Yeah, so LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah,
we'll
we're gonna have you. Oh, go ahead, BA.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say we'll put all of our information obviously at the bottom of the video too, so people can find her.
Yeah, we're gonna have you on again. I'm feeling like we're gonna need like a trilogy of podcasts for you. There's just so much.
We just scratched the surface, but it's such a gift and such an honor to be invited by both of you, and it's just amazing work what you're doing. And I just felt so much resonance when you invited me, and just really grateful. So yeah, thanks for everyone listening. I guess my takeaway to everybody would just be to get really comfortable in just being in stillness and going within and just really trusting what's coming through, and having that dialogue regularly with your heart, and your higher self. That's the key. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. And we'll see you back on one of these again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.